an increasing understanding attempt when probing a home medical guide. I've got the Merck Manual of Medical Information Home Edition. I'm Tanis, she, her, hers of Seattle, and it is Wednesday, 19 August 2026. And I took my MacBook Neo in in relation to charging / battery problems, and then, is it covered by warranty, me going in, making sure, I have this problem, and it flared up and then increased in severity, and then it was like, all right, we can't go in, the warranty's still in effect, and so they, there's only so much I can do here at home and as self, and I was like, can I come up with, and so they ran diagnostics on the computer and then gave me, it was like homework items, of, the MacBook Neos maybe have some speed problems. Maybe they run a little fast, but the ports were still getting power and stuff. And so then there's the software update, and then there's kind of playing around with kind of settings and seeing if the problems get addressed. And I was like, so running diagnostics, I was like, can I come up with something? Since I do cardiology self-experimentation and physiology, which is broadly, the broader category is physiology. And again, I'm Tanis, she, her, hers of Seattle. I was like, can I come up with something from my own background? So drawing on my life experience from yesterday, which included follow-through, I have successfully updated the software. Or I/Apple, right? Team effort there, updated the software on my computer. So I'm going to use it normally, see if the battery / charging problems are still there. If not, then work on the next action item. But I was like, can I come up with something from my own physiology background? So let's expand it to physiology, not just cardiology. Go to the broader category, and see if I can come up with something that's kind of analogous to I took it in and they ran diagnostics. And so I came up with, and I've talked about it a number of years, it's 2026, and I was diagnosed with melanoma at age 22. I'm currently 33 years of age, and so I was 22 years of age, and I went in for annual skin exams, and when there were, and it happened before the spot that was they found melanoma in, and then they cut out the rest of the cancer. In situ melanoma was the diagnosis, and then they cut it out. The diagnosis came from something called a biopsy. So I'm going to page 1377. It's called a diagnostic procedure. So in that sense, is they ran diagnostics, right? So it's also a diagnostic, but it's a procedure / examination type, okay, per my terminology. And so the body area tested here, this is reading from the book, any tissue in body, and then the description is, quote, examination of tissue specimen under a microscope for cancer or other abnormality, end quote. And so they did that to, the piece of skin that they found cancer in, I was not the first piece of skin of mine that they took and performed a biopsy on. I was familiar with biopsy before I got the diagnosis from, they would remove something. And there was also the just plain removal. However, I had a biopsy before. So there we go. I've talked about kind of the temporal being a survivor of the cancer in approximately the summer. It was summer / autumn of 2015. And then I've also talked about self-exams at home. So probing this a little, this is, so there's, the definition is technical. It says technical requires particular pieces of equipment. So probing / putting in context, I brought up self-exams in relation to skin cancer before. And this is one that, per my skill set, I have had to go into and have removal of the skin, and then they biopsy after the removal, and then I would get back the results. So I've been through that a number of times in my life, including the one where it was positive on me having cancer. So there we go. It does probing. They do have more information. There's other pages one can look at. I'm just going to stick with this. Any tissue and body is perhaps vague. It's also any tissue on body. My skin is technically like what I had removed was like on the surface of the body. But you could say it's vague, but it's a very versatile and applicable to a lot of body components, right? So a tissue here would be kind of like the key part. Right, so there's certain things like perhaps a bone isn't necessarily tissue, or a tooth, like the actual hard part of the tooth, might not be a tissue, even if there's tissue in the tooth, or the tooth is alive kind of spirit. So there we go. Yeah, but I was including this one because I did microscope work in mineralogy, and then biopsy. I'm talking about kind of like what I do is a lot of biochemistry, but I've done microscope work, and so I'm like, this is kind of, and I've done work on natural materials, and I was like, well, technically I'm human and I have not had any skin added or like synthetic skin, so it was technically they were doing a biopsy on a biomaterial where the bio part of the biomaterial was me and my skin. So it's kind of a cool thing to think about in like a materials science kind of categorization. So there we go.